Right. Well, hello, everybody. And I'm here with Pat Mah, CEO of Northridge Development Corporation in Saskatchewan, Canada. Pat, thanks for joining me here on our inaugural attempts of Avid Ratings Builder Showcase. So I think to get things rolling, I know as a client, I know Northridge builds in a couple markets in Saskatchewan, builds both single family and multifamily homes. Has won some of our Avid awards for your high performance and customer experience. But can you provide a bit more background on Northridge as well?
Yeah, so we've been around here for about 40 years now, primarily out of Saskatoon and Regina, and then we do some other projects in like some of the smaller municipalities around the Saskatoon Regina, like Martinsville and Pilot View primarily. So
Perfect. And what type of volume, how many homes would you build on say, an average year?
about 200.
A couple hundred.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and that would be like single family and multifamily combined, but about 200 doors.
Perfect. That's great. How are you finding, I guess, side note here too, how are you finding the market right now in general?
Very unpredictable.
Right.
So, yeah, with the interest rates and inflation, it hasn't impacted everybody the same.
Yep.
So, conventional things that would happen in a downturn just aren't happening right now. So, money's still being spent, but just in different ways.
How's the job market performing for you? This is again, I'm digressing here, but how's the job market performing in your markets there? Is it holding up fairly well?
Yeah, I know it is. There's a lot, like we're in Saskatchewan, we're primarily resource based, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, potash mines are going, crushing plants are going, and there seems to be a lot of municipal infrastructure money being spent right now.
Yep.
So there seems to be a lot of money, like big money, being spent. And again, it's weird. And then like the restaurants are kind of empty.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so in certain segments, there I think there is a little bit of slack, and then in others, it's like the big engineering firms and the big contractors are quite busy right now. So
Oh, that's interesting. And that seems like how so much of our economy is just so micro now. Everything's
yeah.
pocketed. Interesting. Well, as we jump in, the topic we're going to touch on today is this idea of confidence, consumer confidence, confidence in builder. Um, we did a state of CX report earlier this year, state of customer experience in home building. And in that, we started looking at some of the correlation of different data points. And what we saw in the research was confidence in my builder. The question confidence in my builder had a really high correlation to overall customer experience in home building across all markets. This was North American wide data set. Um, our data as well shows that your company, Northridge, not only performs high in this idea of confidence at the move-in stage, but you're also sustaining it to the year end as well, since you do some year end touch points, get year end feedback, and you're an Avid Award winner several times over as well. So I'd love your thoughts, your perspective on ways you think you can create and maintain, importantly as well, that idea of confidence in the home buyer journey. Any insights, tips, tricks?
I think like the biggest thing for us is it's like keeping a more human touch throughout the entire process has been kind of it's been a little counterintuitive because everyone's pushing more towards technology. And we use it too. So, I mean, obviously like we use Avid and some of these reports, and we use some other software to track deficiencies, but at the end of the day, people just want their stuff fixed.
Right.
So we do have like customer care people actually pick up their phones if people have questions or emails or want to call us. And then, we have our own service technicians that would go out. In some cases, it's the person that built your house, so they know the house really well.
Yes.
So, and so, from a human perspective, it's like the continuity between you met the site soup, you met the customer care person, you're talking to them, they're coming back and fixing it, even if there is deficiencies, because there always is.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's the biggest thing because a lot of the stuff we just don't control, and we make mistakes too.
Right.
But if a furnace fails, that's we didn't manufacture it, and our plumber didn't manufacture it, but the homeowner just doesn't really care. Northridge built your house.
Right.
So you guys need to come and, help us deal with this issue. And they're understanding as long as they're not ignored.
Totally.
Right.
Yep.
So I think it's just always making sure that, people are buying from people, and you have to make sure that you've got that relevant and kind of emotional connection with your client, and it sort of continues. And so rather than just because, like I said, with the technology, it's quite easy to just fill in an online form and send it in, and someone will get back to you. Maybe. Right?
It's so true. I always talk a lot about this idea of trust, right? I think it takes a bit of that human element or a lot of that human element to create the trust that consumers are craving today to feel confident.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess one thing we'd see, and consumers are always changing. We do a home buyer preference study for the Home Builders Association nationally as well, and we're seeing the data there. Their customers change all the time. Their wants, their needs, market conditions. This is I'm preaching to the choir. It's a challenging industry. Market conditions are all over the place. Do you find it's harder to keep or build and maintain confidence with home buyers these days?
I don't think any harder than before. I don't think any harder than before. I think just in the last little while, though, what's happened is um, there's been new, and we've seen only a very small microcosm of this, but um, what used to be 300,000 entry level is now 400,000.
Yes.
So, and I'm just saying in our market.
Yeah.
And so they feel like, well, you're charging $100,000 more or 33% more. This better be better. And it's, no, it's actually not. It's, it's a combination of all these other things, and it's at very best the same. It might even be a little bit smaller, right? So we can still afford to sell you this unit or whatever. And so people are actually paying more, but they're not actually getting more. But they have an expectation that I am paying more, so I should be getting more. And I think we have to have price stability for long enough where, okay, this is the new reality. An entry level house in Saskatoon, as a for instance, is $500,000 now. It used to be 400, but now it's 500, and you're not getting anything special. And so I don't think people are being unreasonable, because like, just as a normal person, I would expect I would be getting more too, but I'm not. But that's for everything, right?
It is. I feel that way with my groceries.
Right. This better be a way better piece of meat. It's the same one you bought 3 years ago. It just costs twice as much more.
Restaurants, everything.
So again, I don't think it's a consumer issue. I think it's just, if you sort of chunk it down into reality, this is where we're at right now. And then I think just the other part is, I do think some of the supply chain kinks are still in the system. And so, is it a reasonable expectation that, your fridge lasts for longer than a year? Well, yeah, it is. And when it breaks down, now you got to call the 1-800 up. Like, it seems like a lot of those big manufactured pieces, dishwasher, like appliances, or even some of our plumbing and heating stuff is failing early. And it's under warranty and we take care of it.
Right.
But it shouldn't.
Yes.
And people get kind of upset because they bought new to not have problems. And then there's problems. And so there's some of those things that, like, again, just like modern day consumer right now is facing that they wouldn't have before. So
that's true, isn't it? Yeah. A little bit of the post-COVID hangover.
Yeah. Supply chains need to still catch up.
Yep. Well, I guess looking at your data too, we saw the move-in, like at your move-in survey touch point, at your year-end survey touch point, you tend to demonstrate a high level of confidence with your consumers. They trust Northridge, they trust the brand somehow. Do you have a gut? Is it a communication thing? Is it your relationship? What is there any sort of? I know there's no magic bullets, but is there anything that really jumps out at you that makes the Northridge brand a confident, inspiring brand?
Yeah, like we do. Just going back to it, like, we're a really small center, so we can drive to someone's home in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So if they do have a problem or something that's important to them, we can just make time to do that. Where, again, I can't. Whether you buy a car or shoes or whatever, you're typically not getting that type of human to human relationship with people.
Right.
So that I think that's, I think a lot of people just say our people care more. I don't know how to quantify that at all.
We see it in your data somehow. It comes out.
Yeah, and I think they do care more. And, like our customer service people have been with us for, 10 or 20 years. So they've seen a lot of things that we've messed up over the years, and ways that we can address it so it works, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it is just you just show people you care by just going back, because sometimes we can't fix it, but just
Right.
going back and like explaining, hey, this is why this happened, this is why it's normal. I think that also gives people like a little bit of trust, saying, okay, they're not just saying, go see new home warranty,
Right.
or yeah, you know what I mean?
Yes, totally. Yep. Yep. You got to kind of
Yeah.
just, it's about being transparent, I think, more than anything in our industry, because there's so many, when we talk about the potential points of failure in a new home, like there's so many moving parts. So it generally can be fixed up, but you kind of have to own up too. I think a lot with today's consumers, again, to build the trust.
Yeah. And sometimes too, like, because we build a wide range of product,
Yeah,
some things we see in single family we'll never see in multifamily.
true.
Like in some instances, like we see a lot more humidity issues in single family because you've got like larger families showering, cooking, all the
Right.
rest of this stuff, right? So in that specific case, it's not that it was built not to code or not to spec, or the way that somebody's using the house is maybe different than, say, one of our apartment style condos where there's two people, they travel a whole bunch, and their big concern could be sound. It could be, in a lot of cases, it's like heat.
True. Yeah.
Because they like if you're using a common heating system, they like their heat a lot hotter than that family would. Just, generally speaking, especially when it's cold in Saskatchewan.
Right. Yes.
Um, so, but every problem, it doesn't matter if it's to spec or not, is important to the client or not. And if it is, then, we try to find ways, and we're not always successful. We try to find ways to accommodate.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's interesting how you have to be so personal to every homeowner situation, but yeah, we're still production. A lot of what you're doing, what a lot of our clients are doing, are production. So it's how do you do it at scale, personalization at scale,
Right. Yeah.
relationship building at scale. I guess when I was at a webinar a while back, and I thought it was fun, the presenter was talking about, we're not really a builder as a home building company. You're not really a builder. You're not out there generally. Your team isn't out there swinging the hammer and hanging the drywall and things like that. We have sub trades for that, and we have our trade partners for that. But we really are process. The home building industry is process management companies.
Yeah.
In Northridge, do you see any sort of a key process or two that have helped to boost confidence, have helped to provide sort of a better outcome with customer experience? Is there anything that you'd say, hey, this process that we implemented seemed to tie out well with a happier homeowner?
Yeah. I mean, it all kind of starts from like making sure that the specs are right, but then it doesn't matter from there if you're not building it properly. So we do have a QA process where we are going through the house at critical milestones and actually signing off that these things are done properly. A lot of our trades, like we've worked with them for years, so they all kind of get it. So you wouldn't necessarily have to watch so closely, but we do have QA for everything. So at the end of a build, like we go through like everything
Nice.
and try to, not break the house, but make sure that it performs to a certain standard. And then it's noted, and then we try to go back and fix it even before the first walkthrough.
Nice. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in some of those processes we've sort of like learned over the last number of years. Like I think that got implemented maybe in 2010 type of thing. But it's like little things like that. So you still have to have a knowledgeable supervisor. They don't have to be swinging a hammer, but
Right.
we do have to make sure that there is a level of consistency in every home. So that would be one.
Perfect. Well, we talked a bit about software and the digital world we live in today versus the personalization, the human touch. But I mean, there's so much software and tech in the building industry, the space today, new stuff coming out every day. Any specific software or tech that you guys leverage that might again contribute to building confidence with your customers or creating that great customer experience that you guys are known for?
Um, like we use Constellation in their one of their products, Buildtopia. I mean, that's more just a corporate record. We're probably a laggard in technology. Truth be told, where we've adopted the most is on the sales front.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So our website's a lot more automated, but I mean that doesn't help with your customer satisfaction. That helps you get more.
Right.
And then HubSpot and all those types of things. We are using more technologies on that front, but Um, yeah, the Builtopia and like again, just like making sure that we know what happened on this file just for continuity is probably the biggest thing that we do. So
Totally. And it's so hard to keep up with all the software and technology that's out already and coming out now with AI and everything else. So things are happening so quickly in our space and every space. So, well, we did touch on this question already a little bit, but I guess I'll just retouch on it as well. This idea that, a lot of this idea of building confidence is it's human, right? It's relationship stuff. It's, the idea of your company, your brand is your people. The culture, your external customers and your internal customers got to be aligned. Are there any sort of specific practices or training or things like that the Northridge team members use to help really create confidence with your home buyers or keep instilling that sort of best in class experience?
I wouldn't say it's specific training. Like it would definitely be a lot of people that have been with us for a long time. You kind of just lead by example or whatever. And I mean, we do try to have that personalized touch just because we are such a small market
Right.
and everybody knows everybody. Like, quick story. So, third year university, driving up a bridge, and bridge was clear. I ended up rear-ending somebody because he didn't think it was clear. Okay. So we get out of the car and it's like rush hour and we're like, the bridge is starting to back up and I'm like, we have to get off this bridge, mister. And he's like, I'm not doing that without seeing your license. So I'm like, all right. But then we're going to go across the bridge and then yeah. So anyway, looks at my license. He's like, your dad built my house. And I'm like, come on. But that happens more often in small markets.
Totally.
And so the idea kind of is like you have to be treating people with respect. You have to be getting back to them, kind of like you'd want to be treated, all these types of things, because we bump into each other a lot here. And so I think that's more of a culture thing than a training thing, but it kind of goes hand in hand. And I use that example just to illustrate that it's such a small world here.
That's so true.
You can't be mistreating people for very long because it's going to catch up with you.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess conversely, you can leverage, if you're doing a great job, you can leverage that into referrals, recommendations,
Yeah.
all the good stuff. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I live in a smallish market too, about an hour west of Toronto. So it's, I get it.
Yeah.
Before Avid, I was working for a builder. So it was, you'd run into people at the grocery store and everything else. Okay. You got to make sure you're taking care of these customers.
Yes.
Well, we touched on the people part of the business a bit. We touched on some process stuff. Big part of it comes down to product, right? I think a lot of ultimately, I think it's table stakes, having a quality home or a quality product, quality anything, a quality meal at a restaurant. It's table stakes just to be in business today. Is there anything special about Northridge Homes, the product you put out that would make a customer feel like I'm confident buying from Northridge? I like that, from the product standpoint. Is it design? Is it spec?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff we try to do, you don't even see. And so you know what, we're sort of entering a little bit of a new world. But, because we do different gradients of clients, it's extremely hard because we know certain things are cheaper and they'll never know. But they will know.
Right.
And then it's too late. So I think for us, it's always trying to have a minimum spec where it will actually perform for the average person. And so like whether you're buying an entry level townhouse or, a entry level single family house, or, once you get to a higher specification, it's nicer, but it still needs to perform.
Right.
And there's certain products that, whether if it's cheap flooring or cheap cabinets, and not cheap, but inexpensive, not designed to last, pretty quick. You might not know in the first couple of weeks, but you kind of know, right?
Yes.
And so we try to spec in products that will actually last for that user within reason, right? Just because we are in so many different segments. So if you're buying a more entry level product, you might actually be getting a higher level spec out of Northridge, full well knowing that, that spec could actually be in a single family house. And instead of like someone that used to do rentals and going up to the for sale.
Yes. Yeah.
where the spec might be a little bit lower, and they just do that because they more or less things look nice before you use them, right?
Oh, they totally do. It's that new car smell. It goes away fast if you have the wrong spec.
Yeah, yeah. So that would probably be the biggest thing. And again, we do stand behind the warranty and things like that. But it's if it's never designed to work in the first place, the warranty don't matter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the tough part is friction points with customers. We get them. It's a long journey. I again grew up in the industry, and I think it's the toughest industry in the world. Some days the customer journey is so long. There's lots of potential, challenges along the journey. What does your company, what's Northridge do when a problem arises that really could jeopardize customer confidence, really knock it down a bunch of notches?
When you say knock it down a bunch of notches, are you saying de-escalating the situation?
Yeah, I think so. Like if I'm a consumer buying Northridge and something goes sideways on my journey and it really rocks my confidence in the delivery of the house and the experience and everything else, is there a code red strategy you put in place, or how would you handle these situations when they come up that are kind of those make or
I mean,
break points?
a lot of them, I mean, they get to talk to the boss, right? Which is probably the least qualified person for them to be talking to, but they feel like it's been escalated to a point where, okay, somebody, and a lot of times we can't even do anything about it. Like we've missed a possession date or whatever, but I've had certain clients that, they've, they've been detractors and, I've called them or they wanted to talk to me and I've talked to them. And by the end of it, I don't think they're ever going to be happy, but they definitely feel heard.
Right.
And I don't think they're going to say anything bad about us because, again, it's like if we've screwed up, we've screwed up. This happens. And, like we've had certain situations where it's a salesperson with a misunderstanding with what the client wants, right? And
Yes.
it's really not the office's fault. But at the end of the day, Northridge built your house. So we have to eat that. And, like, again, it's just talking to them and understanding them because just sending them a letter saying, yeah, we're right and you're wrong, or yeah, we're sorry, and you get nothing, they just freak out, right? And I mean, I don't like it either.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't particularly like it either. So I think that's the biggest thing, just listening to their concerns because a lot of times they're valid. And I
Yes.
think a lot of people forget that. There's another side to the story, especially for us, as you get further removed from the client experience, a lot of stuff I hear is filtered,
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
right? And so when you actually hear the client and say, well, we were doing this and we were told this, and you look and you're like, huh, I would have maybe thought that too, just as a guy that doesn't know anything,
Right. Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then you can empathize and sometimes you can make it right. But if nothing else, they were heard, and maybe moving forward, you change your process so that doesn't happen again.
Right. Yeah. Always constant learning, the state of constant learning.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I was gonna. We talked before the interview here too a little bit, but I love the idea of a one piece of advice. So, if you were your best friend and wants to start a home building company tomorrow, well, is there any one piece of advice you'd be like, just don't forget to do this, or be sure you're doing this?
Um, I would just say well, always assume it's going to take longer
Yep.
because we always assume that it's not going to take longer.
That's so true. Right?
Always assume it's going to take longer.
Yeah.
Um, but just again being like clear about expectations, and so you have to make sure because we all think that everybody can, well, not read minds, but if everyone was just reasonable like me, there would never be any problems, says everyone. Um, but like where we've run into issues, especially where it's completely preventable, is like what are people actually getting, and this show them, right? Because some people like understand things from an audio perspective. Some of them, they'll walk through the show home. If you deliver that exact thing, they're perfect with it.
Right.
Other people, right, they pick a tile and it's supposed to be this way because they saw it in a magazine, or that's the way it is at their house. And nobody said, well, do you want it Subway, or do you want it this, or do you want it that, or herringbone, and then they're super disappointed, and nobody, like, you can't read their mind. And so just making sure it's crystal clear. And if you can't, have a standard, and that's it. Like
Yes.
if you are not sophisticated enough as a builder to be able to point all of these potential friction things out, this is the show home. This is what you get. If you buy this, this is what you're going to get. That's it.
Right? No surprises.
And no surprises for me, no surprises for you. And if it comes back wrong and we walk back to the show home and by golly, it's different, guess what? I'm fixing it. Right. If it's the same, you're taking it.
That's right.
And I just think, like, from that perspective, you can't ever anticipate what somebody understands, including the builder. So just making sure that everyone knows what you're getting, because people are actually designing this and then building it by hand.
Right. Yes.
So just making sure we know what we're getting and know what we're selling. So
the old mind's eye can do some pretty cool tricks between, you and me, right? This is what I'm envisioning in my brain, and this is what you have designed. Are we congruent here or not?
And you can see how it could happen. And there's just so many different touch points with a client. And again, even like we've, just recently had issues with appliances.
Yeah.
Okay, so, the wall isn't framed out enough, and you go from a handle on the outside to a handle on the inside. Well, if the handle's on the inside, it's thicker, and then it bumps on the wall. Never used to bump. And it's the same 36-inch fridge, right? Fridges are standard, 36-inch standard. Nothing standard.
Nothing standard.
Nothing standard. That fridge is an extra XYZ wide. It will bump if you have internal, and we've designed houses around that, and we let the client go and pick the fridge because we're being nice.
Right. Yeah.
What happens?
Bites you in the butt later.
We're mad, right? And it's just like, how could this happen? And all these processes, like, no. If you don't know what could happen, don't let it happen, right?
It's so true. And there's only about 1 million moving parts too, though. Try and accommodate.
Only about 1 million moving. Yeah, if you can manage that, you're fine.
You're totally fine. It's
super fine. Yeah,
easy. That actually takes us to kind of the broader market perspective. I'm sure you probably heard of Zonda Group. They moved into the Canadian market. They're all over the U.S., but they did a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting because the chief economist from Zonda, Ali, was saying there's like 3 reasons why it's actually a great time to be in home building right now. So from a broader market perspective, they said, there's a chance right now to gain market share for the new home market over the used or resale market. And she said, like, the ideas of more builders are putting up what they call QMI, or quick move in. We call them spec product, whatever, which it competes now with the quicker closing times that a lot of consumers wanted in the resale market. Mm-hmm. And then she also noted, though, that cycle times are down compared to, again, they were astronomical, but they're down to, say, 4 to 7 months for a lot of builders compared to 12 months or more that they've been running for the COVID market cycle. And then also this idea that a lot of builders are promoting mortgage rate buy downs or things like that to offset some of the interest rate issues that the consumers are dealing with. Is Northridge seeing any of those in your market, like any or all of those, like more quick move in product, or cycle times improving, or more builders?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we've seen them all. We've done the mortgage buy down promotion.
Yep.
It is good. Our construction times are definitely down.
Nice.
And with inventories low on the used side, our move-in stuff has been going well. I think the only other thing that I would add is we are seeing a lot more activity on the boomer market.
Oh, interesting.
And I think like with inflation and interest rates, that first-time home buyer has just gotten killed. Hey,
totally.
Yeah, down payment stripped out, and now they're qualifying for be darn near 8% by the time you add your stress test, right?
Yeah.
And so they're having a real hard time getting into the market, even in we're a very affordable market. But the boomers, on the other hand, a lot of them have a huge down payment or their house paid off.
Right.
And aging is, starting to take place where, you have mobility issues, health issues, or even just lifestyle as in you travel a whole bunch.
Right. Yeah.
And so you're starting to get needs that are a lot different, and the used market actually can't do a lot of that stuff.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
We have a bunch of 4-level splits. You're not getting a bunch of, even if they're cheap,
right?
The lifestyle perspective just doesn't work with all the stairs. Same with a lot of the bigger 2-stories, So we are seeing more demand on that boomer side because of this, but a lot less on the entry level.
Right. What about I'm just curious with growing family too. One of the sessions I was at was talking about the growing family market. They're kind of getting forced out. They're outgrowing their product, so they have to move sometimes. You've seen that driving some of the market too,
Um, you know what? I would say there's probably less of that for us. We are seeing immigration out of Ontario and BC though.
right? True.
So, I mean, I'm not sure. I think people normally come here for economic reasons and then stay for lifestyle.
Yeah.
If you're moving from, some pretty nice places in BC, we've even seen some international people. Um, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was the family thing. I think there's probably adequate used inventory there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Gotcha.
Uh,
Makes sense.
but again, there's not that much. There are our inventory levels just on MLS are quite low right now in both the major markets. So yeah, having a little bit of inventory out there is good. The only other thing is the interest rates are quite high to carry that
Oh,
uh,
true. Yeah, that's the other side of it too.
spec inventory. So you got to be a little bit careful too.
That's right too. And it is a high capital game. Well, that's wonderful. I guess before we wrap up, any sort of last thoughts, comments on the industry, or advice for the industry you'd like to share with the audience today?
No, like I said, we've been using your guys' platform for a number of years now, Tim, and we've been super happy for it. Just as a plug for you,
Oh, I appreciate that.
and
Well,
so
we enjoy working with you guys too. It's been a
no,
great.
it's good. It's the best part is you can't you can't buy love with Avid. You got
It's data.
and you get a bad report card, everyone gets to see. So it does keep everybody honest here at Northridge. So keep it up. So
Oh, I appreciate that. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Pat, for joining me here today on our Avid Ratings Builder Showcase. It's been great to learn a bit more about Northridge Development Corporation, and I do wish you guys all the best for continued success as well. Keep up the great work.
okay, thanks, Tim.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
You too. Do stay on just for a second, Pat, then it should.